hello. And if somebody could tell me if they can hear me okay. So if somebody could let me know in the chat if you can hear me. Loud and clear, okay, great. Sorry, there was a little bit of a delay, but I can see you messaging now, loud and clear. Happy days. So, I hope everybody is doing fantastic on this Wednesday and ready to learn some guitar and open our minds. The lesson today has a potentially strange sounding title, recycling, and we'll get to what that means in just a minute. But over the past, I guess this is lesson number 5, in the past 4 lessons I've shared with you guys this idea of octaves ruling the guitar, this idea of saying a lot with a little, and just a general theme of phrasing and musicality as something that comes from within you. And a good sort of bumper sticker for this idea is music through the guitar. Music coming through the guitar. So where does it come from? And if you keep that priority, or if you prioritize that, then all of the new things that you learn, you're able to use them in a musical manner, because that is your modus operandi. Because if you don't do that, you're going to collect lots of different pieces and you're going to feel frustrated that there's no music. And that's perfectly natural, because the music doesn't exist in the materials, the music exists in the musician. So, with that being said, I would now like to build a bridge between what you already know and what you were already working on prior to 4 weeks before, and build a bridge from there to this idea of the guitar as being something which is designed in this octave kind of matrix, I like to call it, this octave matrix where we're moving simple patterns around. So, what do I mean by recycling? Well, when we learn something new on the guitar, then we potentially have just learned one thing, but from that we can learn a lot of things, and we can also create new things. So I'm just going to get stuck in, and we're going to take it back to a more traditional guitaristic shape-based kind of world, and we're going to take the pentatonic scale. So we're playing A minor pentatonic position 1. Nothing fancy, probably the first scale that most of you, if not all of you, learned. And now we're going to take the next thing that we would probably do with such a scale, and that's play a lick. And this is a very common kind of blues or rock lick, okay? And it goes like this. You'll probably know this one. So I'm starting on the G string, bending with the 3rd finger, using good bending technique as we discussed last week. And then we have 2 notes, and they are the 5th fret of the B string, followed by the 5th fret of the high E string, and you can facilitate them by using a bar. You probably already know this lick. It's the bend. It's one of the most classic movements in the book, and we're going to go like this. we shall bend the B string at the 8th fret, using the exact same fingering as we bent the G string, the third finger with the other fingers in a supporting role, with this part of the hand shaking the guitar, giving this hinge or fulcrum. Notice the arm and shoulder and elbow combo. So that is the basic lick. Now, how do we recycle this lick? What we do is we look at the various different components of the lick, and we begin to vary those components with some of the other notes that are available within the scale. So, we have two bends. Let's just start at bends. So, we have the G string bend, we have the B string bend. Now, in the interests of, no finger injuries, I would suggest that for now we focus on bending the G string, the B, and we're going to add the high E. Why are we adding the high E? Well, because it's one of the notes of the scale. And following this idea of recycling, it's like, how do I take that lick and generate new licks? So there is one more possibility for a bend. Okay, now at any point in this process, we can go on a little tangent where we could come up with and generate tons of ideas. But I'm just going to give you a little taste of what I might do with each of those little ingredients. So the ingredient that we're dealing with here is the bend. Everything else in the lick will remain the same, but the bend will change. So, the original lick. Now, let's swap that last note out for the note on the high E string. Now, why don't we go back and repeat the original bend this time? So we started off with one lick, we ended up with two licks, and a third. Now, here, my ear is screaming out for an ending. Do you remember when we talked about phrasing and we said it was a theme, then a variation, theme, then an ending? Well, here we kind of have a theme and a variation situation already happening. This is a theme and a variation. It's actually another variation. Let's end it. Now that sounded like a complete musical sentence to me. Generated from, recycled from one lick. And you can do this with any lick. You should do this with any lick. Very much like any other language, music is a language. So when you learn the word and or the word then, how many times do those words pop up in 80% of our sentences? Those little joining words, they pop up all day long, and yet they never ever lose their effectiveness or their necessity. And if we think of music on the guitar like that, let's peel that back another layer. We're not looking for new stuff all the time. We're looking for new applications of old stuff. Now, how old is the stuff? Well, it goes right back to your favourite guitar player's favourite guitar player's favourite guitar player. Everybody's been playing the same notes. But the nature of the language, we have a musical alphabet of 12 notes. That's all we get. You can kind of get little notes in between there, with blues bends and so on. But that's what we've got. And so our creativity, our musicality, our ability to recycle what we're learning and integrate it into a new creation is or we could say how we synthesize all of that stuff into something new is the important journey, not learning tons of new material, because there isn't tons of new material. So now, I said you can do this with any lick. Let's move on to lick number 2. That was our ending. That will now become a new lick. What are we going to do with that new lick? Well, we can change the last note. The same formula as the previous lick. We change the last note. Change the last note. So we're going to change the last note. Did you notice what I did? I used the formula. I created variations and then I had an ending. So that's me, I'm bending the G string. I'm at the exact same note, the 7th fret, up, bend, release, 5th fret, 7th fret on the D string. Now, I'm using the available notes of the scale. Change the last note. So now I'll go to the 5th fret. Instead of doing the bend, 5th fret, 7th fret, it'll be 5th fret. What am I going to do next? Move on to the A string. Now notice what I did there. This time I varied again using an articulation from last week. The slides. Did you notice what I did there? I went rhythmically the same. The last time, here's my ending. The first time I did. This time I went. The notes that I'm playing are not as important as the thinking behind what I'm doing. Let me show you what we can do with this ending. The ending we just played in. Again, don't try and grab onto what we've been doing. I'll provide a tab for this. You can go over these ideas, but this is about an approach. It's about an outcome. It's about how to generate ideas. So you can generate so many ideas in 10 minutes with this that trying to remember all of them is not what we're trying to achieve here. We're trying to grasp the idea of the creativity, of the generation of the new ideas, not collecting new ideas to remember them forever. If you want to remember them, you can record them, you can write them down, whatever it might be. But I think that you will be more excited by the flow of the stream of consciousness of the new ideas that you're able to generate. This would be at the core of what we call improvisation. Within improvisation, if all we're doing is playing stuff and then trying to remember it, we are caught in this loop of, it's kind of like we're driving, but we're driving in the rear view mirror, and that is not good for many reasons. So just straight ahead. Here's the new lick. I'm starting on the D string. Now remember, we're doing like a sort of relay here. Each lick, I end up creating an ending, and that ending becomes a new beginning. And so it becomes like a daisy chain of ideas, and that's how musical phrases become musical sentences, which then become musical paragraphs, which become solos, instrumentals, pieces of music, whatever the case may be. And of course this applies to any instrument. And now that we've talked about this, please listen to your favourite music and look for these little patterns of theme and variation and ending, or what sometimes is referred to as cadence. And you will notice that this formula is present in every single piece of music that you've ever heard that you enjoyed. Some pieces of music are like crazy serial 12-tone compositions where the idea was to deliberately evade the pattern, but like we don't hear that in the radio. It's probably not in many of your CD collections. Anyway, the new lick, 5th fret, D string, 5, 7, G string, 5, finish on the 7th fret of the D string, 5, 7, 5, 7. Now, let's have a look at moving one of the notes that's not the last note. We've did that twice now. Don't constantly use the exact same idea. This time, and I'm just making this up as I go along, I'm just improvising with the approach and the notes. I would like to change the only note that's not on the D string, the 5th fret of the G string. Okay, it stands out as not being on the D string, so let's use that as a way of keeping track of what's changing and what's staying the same. Now let's move it. Theme, variation, ending. Next time, exact same notes, but move the G string note up to the 7th fret. Now to the next, again I'm only playing notes from the scale, so the next note in the scale is the 5th fret of the B string, 5 on the G, 7 on the G, 5 on the B, and then I did an ending. The ending was 8 and 5 on the B string, and this little bend, which you could argue I've been recycling from the previous idea. Bend the 7, release the 7, 5, 7. Now, I think you guys can guess the next lick is going to be the ending. But before we do that, I would like to look at our phrase again and talk about one other concept, right? Which I call taking a run at it. Watch this. So in one of the phrases, so I added a little bit of, again, it's like taking a run at the phrase. Or it could have been, I'm just using the scale. 5, 8, 5, 7, let's try that one. And I don't have to just come from low to high, I could go. So that time, da-da-da-dum, da-da-da-dum, da-da-da-da-dum, da-bum. So most people are teaching licks, and licks are super essential, but it's what we do with those licks that counts. Licks have to become phrases and musical sentences, which the other word that we use for musical sentences is melodies. So always try and correlate with what you know. You already know at least one language extremely well, so use the rules of that language, the grammar of that language, and convert it into a musical grammar, because that's the exact same rules. One of the best compliments really that you can get on the guitar, and this is a compliment that you've probably given yourself either at a performance or in the luxury of your own home, is when somebody's so good at the guitar, for instance, you might say it sounds like they're singing with their guitar, or like they were talking with their guitar, or you might say they just speak with their guitar, or they just sing with their guitar. There's an unconscious appreciation for the fact that what we're striving to do when we play melodically is to reach for a real human expression, and it doesn't get any more human than the voice. And so that is tied in. Every instrument is in some way a development or a recycling of that original instrument, which is the voice. And yes, instruments can maybe have they can definitely have a wider range than most people's, voices. Let's use an example. The last I heard, I'm pretty sure that Freddie Mercury from Queen, I think he had a 4-octave range. I'm not exactly sure what the lowest note is, but like it would have 1 octave, 2 octaves, 3 octaves. So that's the full range of a guitar. But that's kind of rare. So for most people, the guitar's range is larger than what the human voice would be, but the idea is exactly the same. We might also describe playing as being lyrical, and that again is hinting at the fact that it's something that appears to be conveying some kind of statement musically. Now, of course, music is abstract, they're not actual words. But again, let's compare two of the approaches. Let me just play some licks. Didn't sound bad, but was totally unmemorable. You may have recognised a couple of the licks, but I bet nobody can sing that back to me. But let's check this one out. It sounds more like it's like a statement, a melody, a song even, and yet it's improvised. And so I'm playing with a sense of cadence, which again, the formula, which I'm going to repeat because I think repetition is the mother of skill. The more we hear it, the more it becomes ingrained in our approach, and the more we stop looking for, vague ideas here, there, everywhere that will make us a better player, and the more we start to realise that we become a better player of an instrument, and to the degree that we are able to express a musical thought, and this is the formula, right? So, the basic melody. Check out some of these little run-ups or in-betweens. Doesn't have to ever be the same twice. Again, it's not a lick, it's not set in stone. It's just a concept, an idea, a movement, a pattern. So we said we'd look at the next lick. My previous ending was this. Let's move the first two notes. Up until now we've only been moving one note at a time. Let's move two notes. We're going to go. All I did, and this is more of a geometric thing, like I looked at the pattern, instead of there was that ending again. Let's compare doing the thing without an ending and doing the thing with an ending, and you can tell me which is more satisfying, right? It's okay. The ending, not only does it wrap it up nicely, it gives the listener a chance to expect the next thing, right? So again, this idea of a relay as well. Check this out. kept repeating that last phrase at different parts of the scale. I didn't really know where I was going, but I had a rhythmic motif and a kind of an idea of bends being involved, and so it sounded cohesive. And then I got to the end and I just changed the ending slightly to make it feel like an ending, and so I was able to move cohesively through the scale. There are no patterns that you can learn that will do this for you. This is a creative activity. It's a personal activity. The only person who can tell you if you're getting better at it is you. Nobody can give you any feedback other than to say they like it. They can either say I like it, I don't like it, or any mixture of those two, but saying I see what you did there, I see the pattern that you followed, I can get a sense of a structure. None of that stuff will make you feel like a better player though. You know what makes you feel like a better player? When you're in that creative zone, when you're creating and you're making your own sense of it and it's fulfilling to you. And then there are certain elements which will reveal themselves as being new priorities. So maybe I'm going to give you an example, right? So I'm going to play on the notoriously bright bridge pickup of a Strat, right? Now, whilst I did like that, it was very bright and in your face. If there's any Roy Buchanan fans in the group, then, you know, that to me reminds me of a player like that. It's almost more of a Telecaster sound. So, having listened to that, again, being my own, not worst critic, but best critic, I'm going to listen to that and I'm not going to change what I played, but I want the tone to be more pleasing, smooth, and less aggressive. So, again, I'm not looking for approval for the notes, I'm looking for a satisfaction of the ear, which I'm defining as being a change in tone. I preferred that. One of you other guys might have preferred the other way, which again is just testament to my idea that nobody has your answers. You have your answers, nobody else does. This is the genesis of your own musical self-esteem and confidence, as conviction and what you like. And the twist is that you only know what you like when you start experimenting with what you know. And yeah, there are countless YouTube videos about, you know, how to find this and so on, and if you watch any of them you'll come away with the same thing. It's always grab the guitar, you grab a cup of tea or a glass of wine or a beer, whatever suits you, whatever floats your boat, and figure out what you like. It's like clothes. Nobody can tell you what to wear that will look good on you. They can comment on it, but if you've got a jacket that you really like, you feel good when you put it on, whether they like it or not. So style, super important. Okay, so that's how we take a lick and we recycle it. This final concept here, which I thought about putting in the video title then forgot, is multiplying. So multiply, I like what you said there, Cal Tucker, got to have the whole sentence. You got to have the whole sentence with a full stop. You let me finish that thought actually. Like, the full stop's really important. Like, oftentimes people play strong beginnings, weak middles, non-existent ends. So it's like, if I can do something like and that's strong, but then and then it just kind of fizzles out. It's almost like we're not confident about what we're playing, so we kind of play it quieter and we don't really define the end. And because I mean, who are we to make a bold statement in music? And yeah, and I'll tell you who you are to make a bold statement in music. You're someone who makes bold statements when you learn how to make a bold statement, and that could be like digging in That's the BB King full stop, right? We talked about this in the first lesson for any of you guys who were there. Take the root note A. One note. But like it's like you're making a statement, you're grabbing their attention. If I go, I mean that can be a cool effect. But like in this context of being loud and proud. Anyway, sorry for anybody's ears with those treblistic notes. So yeah, I was just a little bit inspired there. Carl Tucker, got to have the whole sentence. A beginning, a middle, an end, a full stop. Or sometimes ... Like, there are different ways you can leave a listener hanging, but we'll get more into that in a subsequent lesson on phrasing. So, first concept, recycling. Concept number 2, very closely related. We shall call this multiplying, or multiplication, right? And let's just take a very, very simple idea. Now, you could also call this sequencing, but I think multiplying makes it very clear to you that it's something that you can actively do, because a sequence, quite often we think I have to learn that from a book or a lesson, but with multiplying we take whatever we already know and we add the multiplication sign to it. So we're using pentatonic position 1, and here's what we're going to do, right? Say we've learned this little lick and it goes like this. Now, unlike recycling, we're not going to change the nature of that lick at all, but we're going to find all of the other places where we can apply that pattern within the scale shape. Watch this. So I can take that exact concept and now do it between the B and the G strings, but it doesn't go like this, because it has to fit the scale shape. So it goes. Now if I do from the G string to the D string, D to A, and A to low E. So I took one idea and multiplied it. So here is where, in fact, let me do another pattern here, because pattern 1 is very familiar and it has this little straight line, what John Mayer, one of Tony's faves, one of mine's also, calls the pentatonic equator, because it's a straight line. Let's take position 2, and if anybody is uncertain about any of the positions, I believe it was in lesson number 3 or I think it was lesson number 3, I provided a handout with all 5 positions. You can find it by clicking on lesson number 3 in Andy's Wednesday class, and if you click on that you can go to the comments and you will see the handouts, and if it's not lesson 3 it's lesson 2. So pattern 2 is not as I guess symmetrical, right? We have, so again, if we were to do this little pattern of, now it's going to be, then it's going to be, then it shall be, and finally. And you can do it the other way. And these ideas can be slow and melodic ones. Using some sliding like last week. Or it can be like more of a technical thing. again, these are ideas that have wide application, but we multiply what we know, and we get to strengthen our knowledge of the fretboard through moving these ideas into unfamiliar terrain. Right now I've focused on moving these ideas, what I call vertically, from the high to the low E. We could also move them horizontally, so I could go so, and you know, these ideas are prevalent in all music. Like when you hear something fast and exciting, it's probably fast and exciting as opposed to fast and confusing, because there is an inherent pattern to it. When I go there's an expectation. Now we can also mess with that expectation and the spirit of creating interest and tension, but you know, lots of cool guitar playing over the eons has been patterns that have been moved either vertically through scale positions or horizontally, and again it can be used in a slow melodic way or it can be used in a fast and exciting way, what I like to call fireworks. So yeah, we can now combine the two concepts of recycling and multiplying. Again, I said that they're almost two sides of the same coin. Let me show you how that works. So if I could move the last two notes to the G string, and that would now give me a new concept to multiply, which is play two notes on the high E string, play two notes on the G string. So the next iteration of this would be the B string to the D string, the G string to the A string, the D string to the low E. If you apply this knowledge to any pattern that you know, it's really going to open it up to you, because yes, there's only 5 notes repeating and an extra 2, but using this we can create an infinite amount of variations, especially when you include articulations and bends and slides and rhythmic variation, and you know, recycling things and multiplying things, and developing new sequences and patterns, using the idea of there being an inherent grammar behind this. Again, if this is getting confusing for anybody, let's look at it this way. If you want to be a good writer, you know, you want to write a book, your focus is on what the idea is. I would like to write a book about, okay, so it's about, I don't know, the private life of, what are they, those Capybaras, for some reason pops into my mind. Is that the name of the album? A capybara. A capybara, right? It's like a big rodent. But so it's The Secret Life of Capybaras, that's your book, right? And you've got an idea. Now, because you already have this concept of grammar and what constitutes a sentence and where do you put a full stop and where do commas go, you just translate the idea through the medium of the language, and it all happens very naturally, because at some point in your life you had to sit in a classroom every day for multiple years in order to gain that facility. So think of it with music. You have an idea that you want to express a certain level of whatever the feel of the music is, or the groove. Maybe if it's rock, it's an aggression, whatever it is, and you transmit that through this idea of a musical grammar, a theme, a variation, themes, endings, musical sentences, and the little components of the licks or the little phrases that form those sentences are things that you can manipulate. You can generate new ones using this idea of recycling, and you can multiply old ones using this concept of multiplication, so that as you're conveying your idea, it's not just one paragraph, you can have the whole book, right? So you can have an endless stream of variations. Tension and release are present in all kinds of languages or forms of expression, whether it's movies or paintings or, in this case, music. You have to have this sense of wanting the listener to want more. And so musical grammar, just remember that statement, and we will keep returning to this concept, right? So when we are working these little ideas, do a bit of recycling, turns into, and then do a little bit of multiplying, and then just mix it up. Recycling, multiplying. I need an ending, right? And I would like to give you guys one last bonus idea about the pentatonic scale today. Don't only use the notes on each string, use the notes on each fret. All of these, or these little patterns. You don't have to start a new string with a new finger, you can start it with the same finger. And there are many more ideas to come. Recycling and multiplication, there will be a handout. We have now completed today's lesson. Does anybody have any questions or suggestions? Now is the time. If you could just send your question or suggestion into the chat, and I'd be happy to spend the next few minutes on whatever that may be. Now is your chance. Thank you so much, Julie. I'm glad it was good for you. Anybody got a question? Here's the time. Usually have to watch the repeats. Best regards, Kieran. Thank you so much, Kieran. Last call for questions. Okay, so I guess that's us for today. Thank you so much for tuning in. A handout will be in the usual place. Andy's Wednesday class, lesson number 5, which will be retitled Recycling and Multiplying. And I will look forward to seeing your challenge videos. The challenge will be in the handout as always. And thank you very much, John. And thank you, Paul. No problem. Thank you, Kieran. And if you guys do have any questions, just like you had before, Paul, post them into Circle, and I'd be happy to do additional little video lessons. If you want to book a private lesson to dig deep into any element of your playing, you can book them on the left-hand column in the Circle app. And Cal Tucker asked, do you play with a band? Yes, I'm currently playing with a few bands. I play with an English band. They're a rock band called Burnt Out Wreck. In Scotland, I play with a band called the Meisner Effect. They're kind of like, sort of like Toto, kind of proggy but poppy. I play with a kind of heavier band called Sin Dogs, and yeah, I do lots of session work with different bands as well. And yeah, you can find me. I'm what you call a musical whore. I go where the gigs are at, where the music's at, where the good musicians are. So yeah, if you're interested, I can maybe pop some links into Circle as well. Noah, you're very welcome. And from Chicago, gigging there. Nice. Very, very cool. I've never actually been to America, and Chicago is one of those places that I would love to visit. Lots of great music comes out of Chicago. Chi-Town. So, what's the gig, Kieran? What's the band? Where are you playing? Tell me more before I go. You can't leave me with a cliffhanger here. Let me know when you're in. I certainly will, mate. I certainly will. I think the closest I'm going to get. Let me see. Yeah, my geography's terrible, because I was going to suggest that I was close by in Leicester next month, but Leicester is like 2.5 hours from Manchester, so it shows what I know. In fact, I might be, well, that's Leeds, it's not Manchester, but I'll be in Manchester at some point, Paul, and I'll give you a shout. Kieran is keeping it under his shirt. He's not letting anybody know what's happening in Chicago. It must be a top secret project. So okay guys, over and out. Thank you so much for tuning in, and yeah, have a fantastic week everybody. Bye bye.